Hi, I'm Robin. I want to share a very personal story with you. It's something I haven't shared with many people over the last 20 years. It's about how I was saved by God and how He changed my life. And it's why I quit a six-figure career selling advertising to write and produce inspirational films and books. In early 2001, a CT scan revealed that I had hilar adenopathy, which is very serious, and it can indicate lymphoma. My doctor's reaction to it scared me so much, I was afraid I might not be around much longer. I was so scared I cried every day. With her help, I was able to get scheduled for surgery in a few weeks with the head of thoracic surgery at UCLA. While I waited for that and made all my arrangements, my sister Terry told me about an energy healer she knew in Southern California named Gordon. She encouraged me to make an appointment. I wasn't into energy healing at the time. I wasn't into woo woo or anything other than nuts and bolts of life at that point. But I think when you're as afraid of dying as I was, you're willing to try anything. And that was the case. So I got an appointment with him and I flew to California to see him. A dear friend of mine went with me for moral support, and he drove us from the airport to the office and back. So, what was it like? Well, we talked a little bit, and Gordon didn't seem too interested in my medical history. He didn't want to see my x rays or anything. But I shared my history with him and told him how scared I was. So, he had me lie down on his table. He worked on me with his hands, just some audible breaths as he worked on me. And then he worked on me with an eagle wing, a like a 3 foot long eagle wing, which he explained was a gift to him from a Native American. It was very interesting, and I could feel the energy of the eagle. I swear it was a very feminine energy, and her energy went through me, and he stirred up the air all over me, over my torso. And I kept thinking of the incredible effort it must take for her to fly. It was just a, an incredible moment. During the healing session, I had an out of body experience. I saw the presence of several beings of light. They and all the space around them was this amazing, glowing, golden white light. I don't know how better to describe it, and that's sad because I'm a writer, but I'm doing the best I can. It was just glowing and golden and brilliant. One entity came forward and stood out and said, "You're going to be okay. We need you." And it wasn't words like I'm saying now. It was more like telepathic messaging, but I understood it exactly. And I suddenly knew the truth about life, that everything was going to be okay. And I learned in that instant how far we are from the path we're supposed to be on, the feelings we're meant to feel. And it's pure love. That's what we're supposed to be generating every day and responding to each other with. Gordon tapped me on my shoulder. And in that moment, it was like, and I dream of Genie, where Genie just turns into smoke and boom, comes right back into the bottle. It felt not just like that, it was similar to that. Like I could feel my spirit just boom, come back into my body. And until that moment, I didn't realize it had gone anywhere. But I literally felt it come back into my body. And I didn't know it had been away, but that was just such a memorable moment. I also had no idea that 90 minutes had passed since we started. And, it was very casual when he started working on me. I'm like, do I need to close my eyes? Do I need to shut up? We just kept visiting and talking because I do that when I get nervous. So anyway, he tapped me on my shoulder and I came back into my body and he said, take your time getting up. As I opened my eyes, I said, wow. And I heard him laugh a little and say, what? I said, it is so bright in here. It's bright white. It was just glowing, the whole room. And he smiled, and I'm sure he's experienced that before, but it was a first for me. The room was just incredible. Maybe I brought some of the healing light back with me, but the room was just luminescent, like glowing. So we said our goodbyes and I thanked him, hoping that something wonderful had happened. Did I feel cured? Not necessarily, but I felt this deep inner peace. And I sure as heck was praying that something good had happened. On our way back to the airport, my friend and I got stuck in Southern California traffic, no surprise at rush hour, and we missed our flight. So that was a big dose of harsh reality. Yet, whatever sense of magic I'd experienced while with Gordon was only dulled slightly. My friend and I went out to dinner with one of his friends that was there, and I started to feel back to human, back normal. But I did really feel like I'd been changed. The next day, I called my doctor and told her about my experience and said I wanted to have a follow up CAT scan before my scheduled surgery and explained that I couldn't get an appointment. So she made a call and was able to get me in for a scan the following afternoon. Also, that day, I talked to a friend's brother who's a brain surgeon, and I told him what I was going through. He told me that nothing could change in any noticeable way that quickly. Still, I felt like something in me had shifted. So I went for the CT scan the next day. I expected to hear from my doctor in just a few minutes after I got home, like it happened when I first got my scary diagnosis, but I would have to wait until the following morning. I couldn't stand it anymore, so I called her while I was driving to work. She was animated and said, "I was just about to call you." And then she said, and I'm quoting, "I don't know what the fuck he did with that eagle wing, but cancel your surgery." I said, "What?" I was in disbelief. On some level, I knew I'd been saved, but it was all just so fantastic. She explained that this latest CT scan showed a decrease in the adenopathy, and lymphoma would not do that. I could hear the relief in her voice as she said, "Cancel your surgery and have a follow up scan in 6 months," which I did. And that scan showed a continuing decrease in the adenopathy. Being healed and having discovered so much about life, I just found it very hard to go to work after that. I did still work and do a great job, but I was working on an exit strategy from that moment forward. The job that had stressed me so much to that point that it literally made me sick, I just couldn't do that again. And I needed to find some way to get out, and I wanted to write. Then that all happened around March, April of 2001, February, March, April, took a while. And then in September of 2001, of course, the entire world was shaken up by the events that happened. It ended up taking me about 2 years to prepare to resign from my sales job. During that time, I was still working in advertising sales. I wrote a business book because I'd heard that we should write what we know about. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. I do now, of course. But because I'd been so successful in advertising sales, I wrote a book about that. I finally resigned from my sales job, my six-figure sales job in November of 2003. And nobody walks away from a job like that. And my friends and family all thought I was absolutely nuts. But I just knew that I was supposed to be helping people and doing something bigger. That's what I was told. And I hope I've been doing that ever since. I've written 6 books and I wrote and produced 3 inspirational films, collectively known as the Key Movies, that talk about 7 keys that can help you improve your life. I wanted also, and more important than anything else, I wanted to show God how grateful I was for being saved. And I've been working to empower people with inspirational messages ever since. In my movies, I have experts from around the world come and share their important message about a real life event that they've experienced. And the movies are very empowering. Only a few people know what I went through back then. I remember one of the girls I worked with turned to me every day and said, "Stop it, get off the internet, stop searching." Because I would look up hyaluronic and then start crying. It just was such a bleak forecast, a bleak prognosis. So why am I sharing my story now? That's a great question. I believe we are at a precipice. We're facing a battle right now between good and evil. I feel compelled to share my story to now more than ever to show people that God exists and that he's here to help us all. You just have to ask him to help you. And I want you to stay inspired. If you enjoyed this message, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to sharing more messages with you. Thank you.